The trick to those arms, bodybuilder Romario dos Santos Elva says he injected his biceps with oil and alcohol.
Jeff has been under the care of a cardiologist for the past year, ever since doctors treating his steroid infection also discovered signs of heart failure.
For some, fitness is about losing a few extra pounds or maintaining a healthy lifestyle.
I discovered and I experienced the brain-changing effects of exercise.
For others, it disturbingly becomes an all-consuming obsession and a relentless pursuit of perfection measured in every calorie and rep. But what happens when people go beyond the gym selfies and transition into the darker side of bodybuilding? Curious to find out? Well, here are 10 bodybuilders who took it too far. Gary Hyming. Gary Hyming, an Australian bodybuilder born in 1956, dedicated much of his life to the pursuit of physical excellence. By 2009, at the age of 53, he had achieved the remarkable feat of competing in the International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness Championships in Victoria, Australia. This was a place where bodybuilders are supposed to be at their peak physical condition. However, tragically, during his performance that was supposed to be just another day of showcasing his hard work, Gary suffered a heart attack and collapsed on stage. Even with immediate CPR efforts by competition officials, he was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. In a decision that sparked controversy, the competition proceeded as scheduled after his departure. Subsequent investigations revealed that Gary's heart attack was linked to the use of performance-enhancing substances like steroids, casting a somber shadow over the bodybuilding community and prompting a re-evaluation of the sport's health and safety standards. Gary might have died doing what he loved, but maybe he took it too far. Curt Hennig. Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig was truly a generation-defining talent of his era. Throughout his career, he performed in several different roles and did extremely well in all of them. He is one of the greatest competitors in WWE history, and he has never held the WWE Championship. However, he excelled as WWE Intercontinental Champion and has helped to define the title as the workhorse title of WWE. In addition, he also competed in WCW, AWA, TNA, and more.
Would you think of going to the NWA TNA, which is Jarrett's baby?
You know what? I might just cancel out if WWE doesn't take me back in. Maybe I'm gonna go cut a country album or something.
Born on March 28, 1958 into a wrestling family, his path seemed carved by fate. His father, Larry the Axe Hennig, was a wrestling legend, and Curt was determined to follow in his footsteps. From an early age, he displayed remarkable talent, charisma, and a drive that set him apart. Behind the polished image of Mr. Perfect was a man who paid a steep price for perfection. Wrestling's grueling schedule, coupled with the pressure to maintain a powerful physique, led Curt to rely on performance-enhancing drugs, including steroids. Injuries mounted over his career, and to manage the relentless pain, he turned to painkillers. This dangerous combination of substances slowly eroded his body and spirit. On February 10, 2003, at just 44 years old, Curt Hennig was found dead in a Florida hotel room. Acute cocaine intoxication was the official cause, with steroids and painkillers contributing. His legacy endures, but so does the tragedy of his untimely end. Mustafa Ismail. Moving on from the tragic tales of bodybuilders' deaths, we have Mustafa Ismail, once hailed for having the world's largest biceps. Originally from Egypt and later settling in the United States, Mustafa began bodybuilding in his teens. He dreamed of carving out a name for himself, not just in the gym but on the global stage. That dream seemingly came true when his biceps, measuring an astonishing 31 inches in circumference.
Mustafa Ismail from Egypt has just been awarded the Guinness World Record for the largest biceps, measuring in with a circumference of 25.5 inches.
Earned him a spot in the Guinness World Records. Ismail admits that he once relied on growth hormones and testosterone-boosting drugs early in his career, but he claims that his current physique is due to a diet that includes 3,000 grams of protein a day, and his ability to curl 400 pounds and bench press 500 pounds. Yet, As the photos of his biceps circulated, the unnatural shape, lack of definition, and rigid appearance of his muscles led many in the fitness community to question his methods. Accusations of synthol abuse surfaced, and Mustafa's record was quietly removed from Guinness's website. Amid the controversy, he went to Japan to undergo testing and clear his name. The test included a full-body MRI scan and an ultrasound on his upper arms. After the tests, doctors reportedly found no signs of implants, drug use, or intravenous tampering, clearing Mo of any wrongdoing. Unfortunately, the report lacks any quotes from the doctors, photos of the scans, or even the name of the hospital where the evaluation took place. Beyond the record books, one can only wonder if the cost of chasing greatness was truly worth it. Greg Valentino. The world isn't fair, and Greg Valentino's story is a reminder of how far some will go to overcome their perceived shortcomings. Greg started bodybuilding in 1972, a young man with a passion for lifting and dreams of greatness. For over 25 years, he trained naturally, building an impressive physique. At his peak,
Greg is the opposite of an anorexic. He's what some people call bigorexic. And he was so compelled to get bigger and bigger that it nearly cost him his life.
his arms measured 21 inches, a massive achievement for a natural bodybuilder. But for Greg, it wasn't enough. Watching younger, less experienced lifters surpass him with the help of steroids, he fell into the trap of bigorexia, an insatiable, drug-fueled drive to grow as big as humanly possible. He turned to steroids and synthol injections, transforming his arms into grotesque, unnatural masses. His quest for size made him infamous, but it also made him a cautionary tale. The consequences of his choices were severe. Reusing a contaminated needle caused an abscess in his arm to rupture. His biceps swelled with blood and pus, forcing an emergency surgery to drain the infected tissue and synthol. Greg survived, but the damage to his body and reputation was done. Dean Warmby. While Greg Valentino was lucky enough to survive his ordeal, most who push their bodies to the brink aren't so fortunate. Dean Warmby, a bodybuilder from Rochdale, England, was one such tragic story. A dedicated personal trainer and father of one, Dean spent years chasing the ideal physique, consuming up to 10,000 calories a day, including junk food and 7 or 8 energy drinks daily. Early in his career, he turned to steroids to speed up his progress, a decision that would ultimately cost him dearly. In 2010, doctors found a large tumor on Dean's liver. Faced with the devastating diagnosis, he changed his lifestyle drastically, cutting out sugar, meat, and processed foods. Rejecting chemotherapy and radiation, Dean opted for natural treatments and supplements, hoping to heal himself. Even with his efforts, his condition worsened. In July 2015, at just 39 years old, Dean passed away in a hospice with his partner.
An update on a story I spoke about a few months ago about this gentleman who died in the UK from liver cancer.
Charlotte Rigby, by his side. Romario dos Santos Alves. When Romario dos Santos Alves told people he wanted the body of the Incredible Hulk, he wasn't kidding. A young man from Brazil, Romario started bodybuilding with dreams of achieving a physique that would turn heads. But as he chased size and strength, his obsession led him to a dangerous path: synthol injections. At first, the results were dramatic. Romario's arms swelled to 25 inches, earning him attention but also fear. Children would cry upon seeing him in the streets. What seemed like a shortcut to his dream physique quickly became a nightmare. The toxins in the injections caused severe physical and mental health problems. His muscles hardened into rock-like masses, and the pain became unbearable. Doctors eventually warned Romario that amputation might be the only way to save his life. Fortunately, surgeons were able to remove some of the solidified oil deposits without resorting to such drastic measures. Andreas Munzer. Born in Austria, Munzer entered the professional bodybuilding scene in 1989 and quickly gained fame for his ultra-shredded, almost translucent physique. By 1996, he had added 20 pounds of muscle to his already lean 200-pound frame,
Andreas Münzer weighs 234 pounds. He's 30 years old. He's 5'11" tall, and he has been training for 12 years.
Cementing his reputation as one of the most conditioned athletes in the sport. After competing in the San Jose Pro on March 9, 1996, Münzer returned to Munich, Germany, complaining of severe stomach pain. By March 12th, he was in the hospital, bleeding internally. Despite emergency surgery, his liver and kidneys had failed, and on March 14th, Münzer passed away at just 31 years old. The autopsy revealed numerous tumors in his liver, a heart twice the normal size, and organs ravaged by years of performance-enhancing drugs and diuretics. In an interview 2 weeks before his death, when asked about his plans, Münzer gave a haunting response. He said he has no real plans for his future, and he does not know what's coming. I guess he didn't know. The Chad brothers. Chad brothers' story is one of unfulfilled potential. Standing at 6 feet 1 inch and weighing 230 pounds, the 32-year-old bodybuilder seemed the embodiment of physical power. But on October 31st, 2011, his life came to a violent and heartbreaking end. That morning, Chad arrived at Gold's Gym in Latham, New York, before dawn for a workout. Witnesses described him as unusually aggressive and erratic. After falling off an elliptical machine, he flew into a rage, punching another gym-goer, overturning 700-pound weight machines, and destroying an office area. When police arrived, Chad's behavior escalated further. A female officer tased him, but Chad resisted, grabbing her weapon and continuing the struggle. It took several officers and gym members to subdue him. Moments later, he stopped breathing and was pronounced dead at the hospital shortly after. A search of his apartment revealed cocaine and steroids, and medical reports confirmed he was under the influence of these substances, which had triggered agitated delirium, a fatal condition caused by extreme stress on the body and mind. Dave A. Palumbo. There could be extreme stress on the mind and body from almost all forms of sports.
The truth is that, the structure that I have in my life and the way I always, envisioned what I wanted to achieve has not changed.
But it seems bodybuilders take it a notch higher, as you would see in Dave Palumbo's story. After excelling as a college long-distance runner, Dave began lifting weights at 22, initially just to look good at the beach. Little did he know that this casual hobby would lead to a lifelong pursuit of the ultimate bodybuilding physique. Over the next 14 years, Dave transformed into a mass of sculpted muscle, an achievement he credited to relentless training, and later, the use of performance-enhancing drugs and synthol. From his debut in 1990 at the NPC Nationals to winning the NPC Junior Nationals in 1995, Dave's focus remained steadfast.
I don't see how, if I weigh in at 258 pounds, that the least someone could be is the most someone could be is 58 pounds less than me at 198 pounds, and I don't see how they can give up that much muscle and still beat me.
Earning a coveted pro card. Despite his determination, he never reached that goal, often finishing as a runner-up, even after nearly a decade of trying. In candid admissions, Dave revealed his heavy use of synthol and Chris Clark products from 1998 to 2004, chasing size at the expense of his health. The toll was significant: elevated blood pressure, cardiovascular issues, and a near-fatal heart attack. Yet, even as his competitive dreams fell short, Dave found purpose in the fitness community. Now, with over 301,000 YouTube subscribers, Dave dedicates himself to sharing fitness knowledge and guidance, using his story to inspire and warn others about the risks of chasing extremes. Mike Matarazzo. Mike Matarazzo was more than a bodybuilder. He was a showman who brought joy to fans with his signature move, sticking his tongue out during a pose. It wasn't just the crowd that adored him. Mike seemed to love every moment of being on stage, pouring his energy into every flex and smile. Though he never claimed victory in any of his 31 pro shows, he was beloved for his authenticity and passion. His massive biceps and world-class calves were a sight to behold, but behind the stage lights was a man paying a heavy price for his craft. By his late 30s, Matarazzo's health began to crumble. Years of extreme dieting, steroid use, and relentless training took their toll. In 2004, he collapsed, coughing blood, and underwent triple bypass surgery at just 38. Reflecting on his choices, Mike admitted that everything that led to his heart problem began the minute he started competitive bodybuilding. He regretted the chemicals and the sacrifices that stole years from his life. Despite his efforts to warn others, Mike's health continued to decline. His heart, functioning at only 20 to 25%, finally gave out on August 16, 2014. He was just 48.
Believe it or not, reconstruction continued for several years, even after the celebration. Due to a significant increase in pilgrims visiting this holy site, there had to be constant structural changes. This is why you can still see two doorways today. There used to be beautifully decorated beams above these doorways that pilgrims walked under. Sadly, an earthquake in 1927 forced them to be moved to a museum in Jerusalem for safekeeping. It is also interesting to know that centuries ago, after Muslims recaptured the city in 1187, one of the entrances to this church got blocked off. Even though Muslims were in charge for a while, people who traveled to holy sites were still allowed to visit. Influential leaders from Western countries even tried making deals to guarantee access. This place was like a precious treasure, kept safe for a long time, until something unique happened. Archaeologists found it unexpectedly. And guess what they discovered inside? Right where they believed Jesus was buried, they found something incredible: an ancient mortar, a building material. This mortar is like a time capsule. It's so old, from the same period as Emperor Constantine, who ruled the Roman Empire. Finding this mortar under the stone is even more evidence to the stories told for centuries about the location of Jesus' tomb. But how did this story even begin? That tale involves Constantine, the very first Roman emperor to follow Christianity. Driven by a powerful vision, Constantine went on a mission to find the holy ground where Jesus was buried. His relentless search led them to Jerusalem, the city where Jesus was believed to have been crucified. His journey ended at an ancient Roman temple, possibly dedicated to the love goddess, Venus. This was a turning point in his quest. Here, he stood before the historic site. Something happened as he kept looking for the tomb hidden within its walls. The temple, which had stood for centuries as a symbol of Roman power, was dismantled. Layer by layer, history peeled back. He finally found a tomb gently carved from the rough limestone. This marked a critical moment, not just for Constantine's mission, but for Christianity itself. This fantastic find led to the building of a special box called the Edicule to protect the holy area and keep the tomb safe. One noticeable thing was the tomb's resemblance to the tombs of wealthy Jews in the 1st century Jerusalem. These tombs were carved from demanding limestone caves and often had shelves and spaces for the bodies. But that's not all. Interestingly, some believe these similarities show us the social status of Jesus at the time of his burial. The burial bed isn't just a structure made of stones. It has some writings carved into it. As we examine the details carved into the limestone, we feel a powerful connection to the rich story of Christian beliefs. Time unfolds as we explore the marble covering the burial bed. Archaeologists believe that the marble was likely placed sometime before 1555, but clues suggest it might be even older, possibly dating back to the mid-1300s. Imagine the whispers echoing through the ages, carried on every mark left on the marble and every curve on the ancient burial bed. These details are like a bridge between the past and present, evidence of the deep respect shown by pilgrims for centuries. The tomb is beyond the physical structure we see. It's a vessel overflowing with devotion and thoughtful reflection that has survived for generations. But the story doesn't end there. There are many locations that claim to be the place of the tomb of Christ, including a location in faraway Italy, completely away from Israel. How true is the claim that the Church of the Holy Sepulchres is the true location? This place calls on visitors to connect with a powerful story written forever in stone.
For the first time in centuries, researchers have uncovered what's believed to be Jesus' tomb inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Surprisingly, recent scientific discoveries from the tomb are rewriting what we thought we knew. Experts, led by Chief Scientific Supervisor Antonio Moropoulou, took time to analyze mortar samples from different parts of the tomb. What they found was groundbreaking. Scientists found that the bottom layer of the edicule was probably glued together around the year 350. This makes this religious object even more attractive to historians. Why? Because that period was when Emperor Constantine the Great ruled. This connection suggests Constantine himself might have played a role in building the edicule. And that's a surprising fact, because Constantine is known for being one of the first Roman emperors to convert to Christianity. Scientists used a fancy light technique called optically stimulated luminescence, or OSL for short, to figure out how old the mortar samples from the Holy Tomb were. This technique tells you exactly when things made of quartz were last exposed to light, which is super helpful for figuring out how old stuff is. To ensure they got the correct answer, the scientists examined the mortar samples at 2 different labs. Using OSL, they looked at the history trapped inside the tiny grains in the mortar. By seeing when those grains were last exposed to light, they could piece together when the mortar itself was touched or changed. This investigation started because some folks weren't sure if the rebuilt church was precisely on the same spot as a holy site identified in the day. By comparing these samples to known ages of similar materials, they were like detectives piecing together a timeline. Dates discovered in the samples ranged back to 335 AD and even included evidence of a repair job in the 1500s. That is not all that was discovered. The southern wall bears signs of Roman construction, adding another piece to the puzzle of the old church. Using scientific tools and precise dating methods, researchers could read the fingerprints left behind by different builders and restorers throughout the years. But the most exciting discovery came from the mortar near the tomb entrance. This material had a unique signature that pointed to the 11th century. This finding matched historical records describing a significant reconstruction effort after the temple's destruction in 1009. It's a powerful reminder of the dedication of those who tirelessly worked to preserve this sacred space, even after a devastating war. Intrigued by the 11th century reconstruction? Believe it or not, this restoration project is considered one of the most significant in the entire history of the church building. Investigating these pieces wasn't just about dating them. It was also a sign of respect for the centuries of hard work poured into the edicle's restoration. Today, priests from different Christian groups care for the tomb, following strict rules in Ottoman times. But is this truly Jesus' final resting place? Here is the shocking truth. There are 6 other spots in Jerusalem considered possible burial sites for Jesus. One such contender is the Talpiot family tomb, found about 3 miles south of Jerusalem's Old City. This tomb became famous in 2007 thanks to a Discovery Channel documentary called The Lost Tomb of Jesus. Imagine finding bone boxes with names like Jesus, Mary, and Joseph inside an ancient tomb. One box had the inscription, Mariamne, which some believe belonged to Mary Magdalene. Some historians have even claimed that Magdalene was probably married to Jesus. 2 other markings had names suggesting family ties to Jesus, Jude, son of Jesus, and Jesus, son of Joseph. This sparked a wild theory. Could Jesus and Mary Magdalene have had a son named Jude? Shocking, right? But here's the twist. Most archaeologists disagree with these claims. Stay tuned to find out why. Here are some of the other locations that have claimed to be the place of the tomb of Jesus Christ, and centuries-long archaeological effort to unravel the truth. Many experts tell us that names like Jesus, Joseph, and Mary were like John, David, and Sarah today. They were prevalent back then in Judea. So just finding those names on boxes doesn't mean they belonged to Jesus' family. The documentary makers might have been too excited Because these were popular names then. Here's something even more surprising. DNA tests shows no connection between Jesus and a woman named Miriam, who some thought might be his wife. But that doesn't mean they weren't related.
According to the Lost Gospel, Jesus married Mary Magdalene and they had 2 children. The authors even say they have evidence to back up their claims.
Scientists say the test could have missed a father-daughter or even a grandfather-granddaughter connection. Could the Talpiot tomb hold the remains of Jesus' family? Another reason some experts are not entirely convinced is that there weren't many artifacts to examine. Also, the James ossuary that formed part of the evidence examined seems different from the other boxes in the tomb. This raises questions about where it came from. Even some scholars featured in the documentary, besides James Tabor, say their comments were twisted in the final video. This means we still need to dig deeper. Think about it. If Jesus' family was from Galilee, why would their family tomb be in Jerusalem? This doesn't quite fit. Accordingly, to archaeologist Jody Magnus, only wealthy families could afford fancy rock-cut tombs back then, and they would later move the bones to special boxes called ossuaries. But Galilee wasn't known for affluent families. People there likely used simpler burials. Magnus also points out that the names on the Talpiot tomb follow a naming custom from Judea, where people used just their first name and father's name. In Galilee, they would have added their hometown too. This difference means the people in the tomb might not be who the filmmakers think they are. Have you ever assembled a puzzle where the pieces just don't seem to fit? That's kind of what's happening. Another potential place for Jesus' burial is the Garden Tomb. This garden with an ancient tomb became popular in the 1800s thanks to a British general named Charles Gordon. He nicknamed it Gordon's Tomb. The peaceful setting attracts many visitors, especially those who believe Jesus might be buried there. But hold on a minute. Some clues make this theory a bit puzzling. For one thing, the history behind the Garden Tomb is shaky. Gordon himself wasn't exactly an archaeological expert. He thought Jerusalem looked like a skull, with Skull Hill as its head. On top of that, some people have made false claims about things they found near the tomb. The most significant piece of the puzzle is that archaeologists have examined the Garden Tomb. They say it's much older than people originally thought. It might date back to 700 or 800 BC, over 600 years before Jesus. This clashes with the Bible in John 19:41, which says Jesus was laid in a new tomb where no one had been buried before. Could this be the evidence that the Garden Tomb isn't the actual burial site after all? Another contender is the Tomb of the Shroud, found in the Kidron Valley. Now this spot is pretty interesting, sparking debates about its history. Why? Because it's close to the Garden of Gethsemane, a place important in the story of Jesus. Some traditions even link it to Joseph of Arimathea. Carved straight into the rock, just like many ancient Judean tombs, the Shroud Tomb has attracted curiosity because of its possible ties to the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. Legend has it that the name comes from the old burial cloth supposedly found there. While some believe the Shroud Tomb is connected to Joseph of Arimathea, the New Testament figure who offered his tomb to Jesus, others are unsure. There's even a shady story about Ron Wyatt claiming to have found the Ark of the Covenant nearby. Also, archaeologists haven't found any tombs from the suitable period in the area. So is the Tomb of the Shroud the real deal? The truth is that the location of the tomb of Jesus remains one of the biggest mysteries in archaeology, and many sites have competed for this title. Many people visit places like the Dominus Flevit Church and the Tomb of the Virgin Mary because of their deep religious meaning and connection to the Jesus story. While some might not believe these are the exact locations of Jesus' tomb, they're still super important in Christian history. For example, the Dominus Flevit Church, which sits on the Mount of Olives, has a breathtaking view of Jerusalem. It's the spot where Jesus wept for the city's future. Did you know that church is built in the shape of a teardrop? The search for Jesus' burial site is still a big mystery, but something mysterious happened during the restoration work at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Workers found a hidden room inside the Holy Shrine within the church. This surprising discovery added another twist to the story. This sparked a fresh wave of curiosity about the past of the church, and archaeologists are even more eager to dig deeper. But hold on, what was even in the hidden room? Experts are still debating its purpose, which adds to the long list of unknowns. Speaking of mysteries, remember the Talpiot tomb they found in 1980? It caused a stir because some bone boxes had names connected to Jesus and Mary. But before you jump to conclusions, experts still argue about whether the writing is actual and what it means. It's a reminder that in archaeology, sometimes things are not as clear-cut as they seem. It's no wonder that scholars and believers alike are hooked on these ongoing investigations. Thank you for joining us. Which of these locations do you think holds the actual tomb of Jesus? Share your thoughts in the comment section.